Today's guest takes us on her 10-year journey of mindfulness, discovering mindfulness, how we think, the decisions that we make, and how we approach life matters. The Busy Mind series is a 3-part series, all Amazon bestsellers, and today's guest takes a good look at mindset, emotional intelligence, EI, resilience.
Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette.
I am here with best-selling author of a sister podcaster. She is the podcaster of Lead That Thing, and she's the owner of OPTIM LLC. She's a consultant there. She's a consultant. She is the owner. Product strategy is what they deal with. But what we're going to take a look at, a deep dive look at today, is her best-selling her Busy Mind series. If I can just talk, let me put the paper down and just introduce Aruna Krishnan, her Busy Mind series. It's all about our mindset. It's all about, we're going to talk about leadership. This thing, let's define leadership. And I love, it's a 3-part series that you have created. Amazon bestselling. I think one was bestseller 4 times or something like that.
All 3 of them hit number 1.
Wow. So the lady knows what she's talking about. She really opened up my mind concerning a busy mind and our emotional intelligence, because we could talk about her other layer of expertise, product strategy, but unless we are aware of our emotional intelligence, our resilience, and what does all of this look like, I think that we're of none effect. So welcome, Aruna. And what do you say to all of this? What are your thoughts? I'm just kind of bumbling through here, pulling my thoughts together, but let's hear from the expert.
Thanks for having me, Margot. I'm so excited about all these topics. So let's start with the Busy Mind series. So I'll start. It is interesting, like when I wrote these books. So starting with the first one, which was Stop, Wait, Go, and really covers, how to develop your emotional intelligence. When I was writing these books, the first one was like almost just like a bucket list. I want to write a book, and it's based on my experience, my own personal story, how I overcame some difficulties and how I embraced mindfulness and how I learned how to deal with people. Mm-hmm. So Stop, Wait, Go was the way, basically, is my learning over 10 years of how did I change my mindset? Because prior to that, you just kind of go through life, and you go through life with the way you've done things. Let's say, because my transition came around the age of 35. So based on however you grow up and your environment, you just keep absorbing things and not really even taking the time to reflect. So then I got to a point where I was really at a really low point in your life. And I think a lot of times that makes you rethink your decisions, rethink like, how do you want to move forward in life? So, and I didn't even know this because sometimes it's education. So 10 years ago, I wasn't really aware of what depression was, right? You hear about it, but then I didn't know that I was going through it. I can say that now I am, because I had close people that are really close to me. They've seen doctors, they're seeing people for depression. And so then now I realized those same symptoms was exactly what I was going through, but I didn't recognize it. So I went through this journey, and a lot of it was embracing mindfulness and realizing that a lot of circumstances are in our own control and in how we think, like basically that we can control our destiny, right? And I did all this research, and with all the spiritual texts, the interesting thing is they all said the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, it's about how you think and how you the decisions you make for yourself and how you decide you're going to approach life.
Wow.
So that was super powerful. And
Yes.
when I embraced that, then what I realized is, with a little bit with the meditation process. So that was something I first tried, because that really cleansed a lot of stuff. So to start with, I had to let go of the 35 years of, all the negativity from the 35 years. I had to let go of that if I was going to move forward with a different, with being me and being happy.
Yes.
So what I realized in that process is that every time a thought comes in, you have the power to recognize it and then make a decision on how you're going to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that recognize a thought came in. How is your body feeling? Are you reacting? Because the more you do that, you just realize it right away. It's almost like you get these signals, like something lights up. There's a beep, 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 beep. Watch your behavior. And then that's your opportunity to, take a step back and say, how should I be reacting? Why am I upset about the situation? And then, so when you finally act, you're actually making a good informed decision. And it's not this, I'm going to act in the moment and I'm just going to react because I'm emotional and I'm annoyed and I have the right to behave this way. You've actually given yourself that time to calm down, be rational, and act. Not to say that never take action, but take that action where you're actually going to reach the other person and they're going to be able to take your input.
Wow.
So
control your thoughts. That's what I hear you say.
Right.
Don't just fly off the handle and expect that you're going to have good results. And that's in whatever arena we are in, especially when we're leaders. So do I hear you say, take control of your thoughts, take a moment to step back, evaluate everything, and then you react because you've made a decision. Is that correct?
Perfect. And so let me give you an analogy that should really simplify it. You explained it perfectly, Margot. And the analogy that I draw in that book, and why the book is called Stop, Wait, Go, if you recognize those are traffic lights. So if you think about a busy intersection, and imagine that busy intersection didn't have traffic lights. Imagine the chaos and the destruction. Now, shift that busy intersection to be your busy mind, because we have lots of things. We think about what we're cooking, what did we have in the day, what do we have to do tomorrow? And imagine you don't have those traffic lights. That's the same chaos and destruction that you can bring to yourself if you don't apply those traffic lights.
Wow. Been there. Oh my goodness, you have given us tools, Aruna. You've given us tools to go by to quiet it down. I would imagine that's why some people can't sleep at night. I know I've been right there. You didn't implement stop, wait, and go. Everything was green light, green light, green light. Oh my goodness. And yeah, then you have this huge collision and then you don't know what to do about that. Exactly. So this was 10 years in the making for you to come through this. This is what's going on, and a light bulb moment that you're passing on to others.
Exactly. And the thing is, Margot, in this journey, because I was trying to solve for my own problems, I realized, and as through this process, I really developed empathy. And then I could see people that were suffering. Because a lot of times when you see people acting towards you or like giving you this negative energy, you don't think that they might be going through something, And what I
True.
realized that those people that were close to me, they were going through something, and I learned to have empathy towards them. So when I started getting this negativity from them, I was like, I actually kind of feel, well, not say sorry for them, but I understand why they're behaving that way. And it made me want to help them, rather than feel sorry for myself and be like, oh my goodness, that person's a bad person. Because that's almost like an instinct, right, with us. But then when you develop that empathy, you're like, where's this person coming from? And why is this person behaving that way? And it just helped me grow so much as a person, and having that empathy towards them, having that patience towards them, and also being able to say that I can say what I'm feeling towards them, because now I know it's something rational I'm going to say to them. They can either take it or they can leave it, right? But it's on them to decide how they're going to react to what I say to them. And so it
Wow.
gave me a lot of freedom.
Oh, yeah. And you don't have to feel that, you don't have to assume the guilt that would come back from a person that would assume they're acting out of emotions, and they're going to assume that you're acting out of emotions. Then you know that you've taken a chance, you've taken time to stop, watch, stop, wait, and then go. So then you don't have to assume the responsibility of something negative that they're going to try to shift back on you. This is powerful stuff right here. And then that does away with the polarization that comes with this back and forth and back and forth and finger pointing and, oh, what a mess.
Right.
Wow. So you came to this conclusion. This is your very first book. It's no wonder it went Amazon bestseller. It's no wonder. So now, did that lead you into Unpuzzled, problem solving for a busy mind? Because you're still with this Busy Mind series.
Yeah.
So take us into the second book. What's that all about?
Sure. So it is interesting. So now I put this book out and I realized that I'm having an impact. I'm making people think, and I'm making people think differently. Then, of course, it changed from, okay, bucket list to like, I think I have something here. I have something to share with the world. So the second book was around how do we solve problems? And it was inspired by a blog that I wrote about my son being a speed cuber. So for those who don't know what a speed cuber is, it's people who can solve a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds or less, right?
Oh my goodness, I've seen them. Your son?
Yeah. So we used to go to these competitions and stuff, and I was inspired and I learned how to solve it. Of course, I didn't solve it in 10 seconds. I think my best was a little less than 4 minutes. Kind of embarrassing, but hey, I solved it. So bucket list check off. But in that process, I learned that so of course I got a lot more reflective. And then it's weird because I felt like, because I'm so in tune with what I'm thinking that I get this clarity from things I do. So what I realized was, here was a process that I used to learn that Rubik's Cube. So it was a 2-week process, was recognizing patterns. First thing, because it's all about the patterns, like where are the different pieces, et cetera, et cetera. And then secondly was to have patience. So there's like about 6 algorithms you kind of have to remember, right? So then being patient, because the first few times is you look at the solution, you solve it, and then you want to get to the point where you've memorized it, and it's more like you have that muscle memory, but it takes patience. Then the third step is persistence, because patience is good, and that's the starting point, but you have to keep at it. You can't just give up. You can't give up and say, like, I'm not going to get it. You have to persist, because problem solving takes time. And then finally, it's practice. You keep trying, you keep trying, you keep trying, and then you get there and you get better. So that's a small example. And then inspired the article, but then I realized that you can apply the same framework to any problem. It's always about what are the patterns that you're seeing with this, like symptoms and patterns. You can think about patterns as symptoms, or like, how is this playing out? And then you think about how, and in general, you will solve that, like, piece by piece, whatever those patterns are, address them. And it takes patience. Like, problems are never solved overnight. So you need to give yourself that time. And then you will have iterations of doing that. That's why you need the persistence, right? Because it may not get solved the first time. And here's a point I would love to make, because this is a mistake that I've made. Like, failure, the definition of failure, right? A lot of people think that failure is the end. It's not synonymous with the end. It means get ready for the next iteration, right? It's a feedback loop. So there's your persistence comes in right there. And then the more you do these type of things, practice, is you get better at it. You get better at recognizing the patterns. You get better at going through the process and thinking more clearly, and it becomes natural. So in the book, I give many different examples, whether it's parenting. So this is what I love to do in my books, is give these analogies where there's a framework and then how to apply it in different situations. So I start with, like, say, escape rooms. You can apply the same framework. People, like Margot, people, recognize those patterns, right? Like, that's how we learn about people. That's how we learn to get along with people. That's how we learn to deal with people, recognizing those patterns and being patient and being persistent, and then even in business, entrepreneurship, right? What is going well? What is not going well? What are the reasons why something is not working out? But then constantly be patient, because you're not going to be a success overnight. Persist, right?
Wow. I'm loving this. I can see my mind has gone into learning violin, learning Greek.
Exactly.
Just everything that you can think of. Wow.
Right.
And this is book number 2. Now, the first one, stop, wait, and go. This is where we understand. And Aruna, I've just thought, someone may not understand what emotional intelligence is. Will you explain that to them real quick, just so that we don't lose anybody in the translation here?
Oh, sure. So let's think about a more common concept of IQ, right? Intelligent quotient. So that's purely like how academically smart you are. So emotional intelligence, which is measured in terms of EQ, is like your emotional quotient. So that's really like, are you being smart about how you interact with people? Are you able to read the room? And that, oh my God, it's amazing how many people struggle to read the room and say the most inappropriate things. It's just like that lack of awareness. So that emotional intelligence is your awareness in a situation, your ability to control what you're feeling, or not really what you're feeling, but control how you react, or basically acknowledge your feelings, control how you react, and be able to react to the person in a way that they can relate to it and respond to it. And you can have like that healthy, even if it's conflict, it can be healthy conflict and healthy conversations.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is so important. I'm so glad that it came to my mind. Everybody doesn't understand. And that's what the world, the workplace, networking, anything that we go at, we need to have that EQ there, that we have to make sure that our emotional intelligence is first. We are practicing. We understand our patterns. We're patient and we're persistent and we're practicing before we speak, so that we can refine how we act, and then people will hear us, because that's what communication is: hearing, listening. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
And if we have this back and forth, and you're a little kid and I'm a little kid, and your EQ is not what, we're both off the chain, then we have a terrible situation.
So, and here's something too that I've been observing, and I think it's so important with the listening, as you said, so important, because a lot of times confirmation bias, that's something. So confirmation bias is where you have your mind, you have your ideas, your mind is already preset on what you believe, and you're presented with a situation, and your mind will tend to want to see what you already believe. So it prevents you sometimes from seeing the big picture or the truth, right? So I think a lot of times that prevents people from actually learning about another person's point of view. Because let's say, Margot, you're from California. Let's say let's give a really simple example. You're a 49ers fan, okay? And I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm a Packers fan. Let's just take a basic example here. And Margot, you're going to tell me how great your quarterback is, and of course I love our quarterback. And if I don't keep my mind open, I would be like, no, Green Bay's quarterback is the best because he has all this record of he got MVP, blah blah blah, that whole deal. But then if I stopped and I listened to your point of view, and I would actually be able to say, okay, I don't actually know who the quarterback for San Francisco is, but maybe he is someone who has potential. So why would I need to limit myself and feel so attached and develop this allegiance to my team so much to the point that where I live in a bubble, right? Mm-hmm. The world is big, and you need to recognize when you're doing that. I mean, I use sports team just because it's less controversial, but it's same thing, like political.
Yes.
Same way, I think if we all listened and developed that empathy and stopped with our confirmation bias, I think we would be able to relate to each other and actually realize that we all have the same goal. Coming back to the sports example, what is our goal when we're a sports fan? We want to enjoy a game. At the end of the day, if your team wins the Super Bowl or my team wins the Super Bowl, we're not getting any of the money, right?
True.
It's an event at the end of the day, and it's entertainment, and we move on with life. It doesn't affect us to the point where they touch our lives, right? So I'm just saying that in every situation, like whether it's in a corporate place or in business place, I think it's so important that we keep our minds open, look out for that confirmation bias, because even in politics, in everything that's going on in the nation, I feel like if we as individuals start to open up our minds and be empathetic to people that may have different views, we can solve a much larger problem,
It's we're not them and us, or us. It's them, we would, but them. And then they're saying the same thing. And then here we come with polarization.
Right.
Wow. Aruna, it keeps getting back to me I keep going back to your first book. If we can stay open, if we decide to stop, wait, and then go. I think we make everything so complicated. If we, would you agree that if we can get that down and practice that, rinse and repeat, if that can become a way of life, a way of serving in this world and interacting in this world, we would all be better off, because then the empathy can be there. And we don't have to just be so rigidly right. What are your thoughts on that? Am I seeing all of this correctly?
You hit it on the head. You hit the nail on the head. That's what we're lacking, is that empathy, because we're so caught up in what we believe, and that's what we feel like we want to fight for, right? Right? It's not a fight though. It's like we all want to live happily and in peace. So let's take a step back and, drop our like super strong like allegiances. And interesting, I'll throw this in here. I read this in one of like a book that's like a spiritual text for Hinduism. And it talks about exactly this, like, sort of a vice is to have these overly strong beliefs, whether it's like, allegiances to whatever it is, let's say sports teams and all that, because you lose your peace of mind. Because if you're going to be watching, let's say, a football game or whatever it is, and if you're finding that, oh my God, your stress levels are going up, is that necessary? Take a step back and look at the big picture, right?
Yes. Gosh. These books are just sound advice. I believe that it's something that we have to work on our EQ. We have to take responsibility for stopping, waiting, and then go. Stop just for a minute. Step back for a minute. What am I thinking of? Why am I thinking this? And then, just wait a minute. Just calm the emotions down, because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm thinking emotions are good, but they are so very destructive when we don't control them. As in your first book, we have to control them. They're like bad kids. They have to be controlled. We're the parents. We have to control our emotions. That's why out here in California, sometimes you have the drive-bys, you have on the freeway, car-to-car shooting. Sometimes somebody cuts somebody off. Next thing you know, they're getting out their stuff. And, can we just say, I'm an adult and I am going to take responsibility for my emotions.
Right.
Gosh. Let's get to your last book. I can't wait we take in your last book, Lead That Thing, Leadership for a Busy Mind. And in that book, you take a deep dive look into leaders. And you answer the question, I think, is leadership natural, or is that something that's nurtured? And I've heard people that goes back and forth, but I sure can't wait to hear what you say about this.
Yeah, it is interesting. And so I start off the book with actually taking leaders in nature, right? So 3 examples of a wolf, a cheetah, and a giraffe, and how they lead in their environment. Now, obviously, these leaders, I say, they haven't read textbooks. They're reading, but they're leading by instinct. What I do highlight is some of their techniques. With the wolf and with the cheetah. And I analogize. Of course, this is what I love to do in my books. I analogize on some of their strengths and how those same strengths can be applied, let's say, in an organization or, in a corporate environment, those same type of concepts. So, for example, with the wolf, a real simple example. So with the wolf, there is, even if there is some type of hierarchy, every role is important, right? There cannot be success without acknowledging every single role. And so just to kind of bring it back to corporate, regardless of if you're the CEO or if you're like an entry level, you all have to work towards the same goal. You all have to be aligned on the goal, for one, to bring success as a whole, right? And often there can be mistakes where leaders think like, the bottom of the totem pole doesn't matter. But no, they matter just as much as you do, because they're the ones that bring you success, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
That's some examples. And then so bringing that, showing them like, hey, look, these are how leaders lead in the wild. And these are some of the principles we can use in the real world, and learning from them. And then I go on to kind of talk about how we can think of ourselves, assess ourselves as leaders. So there's some things definitely we need to reflect on ourselves. Are we ready to lead? What are some of the traits that we need? And you know, there's some basic things. It's like having that confidence, building that belief that you can lead people and make decisions, and being comfortable with making those decisions that are not popular, right? We can't be we can't be people pleasers, because then we're not going to make the best decisions. If we
Yes.
thrive on popularity, then that's really not being a good leader. And we need to be able to look out for people. We need to be able to be okay with giving other people credit, right? It's not about you, like having that, it's all about humility, right? So just I call some of those traits out to say, like, hey, here's a survey. Think about each of these things. Where are you at? Because we're all at different levels when we are in leadership. And sometimes people get comfortable in leadership and they forget the basics,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So I go through that. And then another thing I really emphasize in this book, because I think sometimes we forget this, that leadership is not a title. And I like to emphasize that leadership can be you being a parent. So leadership at home. And I tie in all those survey questions in each of these situations, just to show the universality, if that's a word, of leadership and the traits needed to be a leader. And it can start right in school. So I work through an example of a student, because I think it's so important that we encourage leadership when these kids are young, right? I didn't grow up in an environment where I had a lot of opportunities, but now seeing my kids going through high school, there's so many opportunities that are provided for these kids to thrive in that type of environment, develop it really early and develop that confidence. And then I work through an example of like entrepreneurship, so I give different scenarios of leadership, that leadership doesn't just mean one thing. You can
I'm
have
glad
many
that you
different.
I'm glad that you hit on that, because so many people, you made a couple of really good points, and I'm sitting here shaking my head thinking, yeah, a lot of people are in corporate leadership. And I'll go there. I'll say the congressman, Congress, Senate, they've been there 30, 40 years. How long? You're a fixture there. Just go ahead and buy the podium there. But leadership it is not a title. It is not a title. And it's not just the senators, it's not just the congressman, it's the mother that's making the home. It's the volunteer that goes into, say, the hospitals, where she used to go into the hospitals. It's the person that would go ahead and donate books to a neighborhood library.
Yeah.
So leaders are all around us,
Yeah.
and we don't celebrate them enough, because we don't understand that person's a wolf, a giraffe, or a cheetah.
And I call that Wachiji. That's my nickname for all those together.
I love it. I love it. Wow. Aruna Krishnan, you are indeed a best-selling author. You have taken us on your tour of the Busy Mind series, and it started with one book, and the same theme just resonates. Stop, wait, and go. Control those emotions. How many times do we hear that? People have gone to prison because they have not been able to control their emotions. People have missed out on golden lifetime opportunities because of emotions.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I would say we're using the word control, but I would like people to think of evaluate their emotions. So it doesn't feel like it's suppressing, but go through the process of evaluating. And in my book, so I definitely have like an IT background. And so I have like this flow chart basically that shows like, you know, here's like a trigger, let's say, and then that flows into your stop process. And what does your stop process say? Like, oh, let me see, is my heart rate high? If it's high, then I need to stop. am I feeling normal? Then let me proceed to the weight. Like, what are my actions going to be? So that's a decision point, and a decision point is represented by a diamond. And then in the weight process, have I asked all the questions that I need to ask before I do the goal? Yes, no. Okay. If no, then go back to evaluating. If yes, then go to go. And go means like a positive action, or, you're ready for action. So that's how I think about it.
It's fun, it's interactive, and it really demands that we pay attention. I'm sitting here wondering, okay, we have the tangible book. What about the audio book? We need to have this so that when we're out running or hiking or in our car, instead of just listening to music, sorry, musicians, I pay homage to you all the time, but this is self-care, this is self-development, this is life-changing information. So what say you about an audio book or something like that? Because we need this information.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Maybe that will be in the cards. Never say never, but yeah, definitely. If this is something that people want to hear, I will think about publishing it in audio. So I want to say a couple of things here on that note. So I do have a podcast as you mentioned, on the top of the show. So this season 3 very specifically will touch on some of the stuff. It's completely on personal transformation. So I talk about, you'll see that I'm a very process person. So I talk about the 5 R's of how to go about personal transformation, being reflect, rinse, restart, reinforce, and repeat. Oh, wow. And so there's a lot there, but it's basically reflect on why are you where you're at right now. So it centers around your belief systems. Are they still accurate? From, let's say my transition was at 35. Are they still accurate? Do I still want to, do these still apply? Do these serve me well? Second, interactions. Do I have the right friends? Do I have the right people support, or am I surrounding myself with the right people? And what was the last thing I said? Thought process. Oh my God, so important. Thought process. Mindset is everything. So like once I changed my mindset, my whole life changed. So reflecting on those, rinsing out the things you don't want, and then restarting with your new belief systems, interactions, thought process, and then reinforcing, same as that practice, right? We talked about.
Yes.
And then the repeat is the feedback cycle. So practice, you go, and the repeat goes back to reflect, because it's not a one-time process. It's
I'm glad
just like
you said that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So we can get this information and go through this process on your podcast.
Yeah. And I've interviewed 4 wonderful women who also share their personal transformations. So yeah, that's a goodie. Season 3 would be the goodie.
Season 3 on Lead That Thing. Of course, You're on all major platforms, Apple, Spotify. Yep. Okay, we are totally without excuse. We can go over to Amazon and pick up the series. We can go to any major podcast outlet and we can listen to Lead That Thing. Wow. Correct. Aruna Krishnan. This has been... I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
One parting thought here, because we touched on leadership and leadership as students. Look out for a book that I'm doing with me and my daughter as co-authors on moms and teen daughters, and how to bridge that gap. Because as I said, I truly believe in empowering women. So that is my purpose in life. That's what I have realized. And these girls need to be empowered, starting from a young age. And teenagers and the teenage phase comes with a lot of challenges. One, just their teenage brain, and then now with everything we're going through, it adds a whole nother layer of complexity. And if I can share with other moms how we can deal with everyday problems or like issues that maybe we don't see eye to eye because of our generation gap. And if I can show them, hey, this is how we can kind of come to that middle ground and be on the same page with them, be able to relate to them, again, empathy, and also for teenage girls to understand where the moms are coming from. I think that's such an important relationship, because if you have that person you can go to, your mom is for me, I mean, it can be your mom or your dad, but I'm doing this from the perspective of mom. I see the mom as that nurturing person for a daughter. I see myself as that for my daughter. So any other mom who sees herself as that, I want to be able to provide this as an example, and shed some light that we need to be their partners and their guides in life, so that they're empowered women when they move on from us.
So very necessary, because you oftentimes hear women just exacerbated because there's this divide. The daughter doesn't speak with the mother. She has her girlfriends, and you know what it's like when you get folks the same age together. Who knows what? They've only been here 10 minutes in life, but everybody knows everything. So that is going to be that's going to help a lot of women, a lot of mothers, and for those the young ladies that want to that take time to evaluate their emotions, then they are going to see the value in their mothers and the awesome opportunities that they have. When you are paired with your mother, gosh, the sky is the limit on what can be done. Right. So that's amazing. When does that do? Yeah, you all have a launch date or anything?
Right now it's summer of 2021. So more to come on that. Keep your eyes open.
I think you're going to have another series there going, Aruna. Sounds like a series. That's so big oh my God, a series, and then you could do another podcast, and wow, and helping mankind, elevating and enriching women. That's what you do. That's what you bring. You help them lead that thing.
Yes.
Gosh, wherever they are. I thank you for this time. I really, really do. I have learned a lot. Thank you for allowing me to ask a lot of questions. And I trust that I asked the questions of the people that are listening. Will you just tell us give us your website? I already told them they find your books on Amazon, and just tell us how to find you.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, Aruna Krishnan. I call myself the Empowerment Advocate, so you can look at me there. I also have a Lead That Thing company page on LinkedIn, or my company website, which is optim-strategies.com. And I have some goodies there. I have forums and freebies and my Lead That Thing blog.
Sounds good. And of course, go to Apple, Spotify, iHeart Radio, anywhere, Spreaker, find her everywhere on Lead That Thing, which is her podcast. And she said season 3 is where you really want to get to the meat of what we're speaking of today. So thank you very much. I appreciate this time. And gosh, I would ask you for a parting word, but I think you've given it to us. And I have other questions, and we'll be here for hours. So in the meantime, I'm going to say thank you, Aruna. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Margot.
Anytime. You're definitely going to have to come back. We're going to have to come back and I want you to teach us about this product development. That's a whole nother subject, because we throw bread out on the water and we don't know, as entrepreneurs, we don't know if it's going to sink, swim, is it going to get wet? But I digress. Thank you again. Bye-bye, everybody.
I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, Please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.